Meg, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
You live in LA now, so you had to make a trip.
I had to commute.
And I had the benefit of interviewing you and Jeffrey Katzenberg, your partner, a few months ago about where you were. Things have progressed a lot since then. You've got a launch date now, April 6, 2020.
That's right.
What happens between now and then?
Yeah. Well, remember what Quibi is. For those of you who don't know, you've probably figured out that Quibi, the name, is a contraction of two words, quick bytes, which is what we call the content on our mobile app. And we are trying to combine Hollywood's quality content with short-form video, mobile only. And the target audience is 25 to 35-year-olds. We think we'll catch 7 years younger and 7 years older, so 18 to 44. But this company did not exist in August of last year. We raised our first round of funding. There were 2 employees, me and Jeffrey Katzenberg. And today we have 160 people. We have 8 shows in production, 2 done. And we are building the mobile app. In fact, I saw the first generation of the app yesterday, and it looks fantastic. So we're trying to really combine the best of Hollywood and the best of Silicon Valley in a completely new form of entertainment.
So you've been a little secretive about the content, but I'm going to try to do my best.
Sure.
You've got a horror series with Steven Spielberg.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So Steven Spielberg came to us. So the first thing you should know is we're a platform. We are not a studio. So we commission all the content from our studio partners, most of which are investors in Quibi. And Steven came to us and he said, remember, our use case is also 7 in the morning and 7 at night on-the-go viewing. So you're on the commute, standing in line for a cup of coffee at Starbucks, waiting for a meeting to happen, waiting for people to join you at lunch, at a doctor's office. But Steven came to us. He ignored the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. directive. And he said, I want to do something super scary, and I want to do it only for people to watch at midnight. Like, that seems a narrow window to me. But we went to the technology team, and of course, on your phone, we know what time it is, where you are precisely. We know what time sun sets, and we know what time the sun comes up. So the tech team put together a little one sheet that would be on the mobile phone that would have a countdown clock to when you could watch Steven's show starting at sunset, and then the next morning a countdown clock to when you could no longer watch it. Ooh. So we went back to him and we said, how about 7 p.m., or sunset to sunrise? And he said, fantastic. So he is actually, for the first time in 15 years, writing a super scary story for Quibi. So we're excited about it.
All right, maybe I can catch it. J-Lo,
yes?
Justin Timberlake?
Yes. Yeah. So Jennifer Lopez came to us, her production company came to us and said, we want to do something that is about pay it forward. And she said, what I'd like to do is get $100,000 and give it to someone in my life who made a difference to me, a coach, a mentor, someone who helped me when I was a little girl, on the proviso that that person takes half of it, $50,000, and gives it to someone in their life who did the same thing. And so it's at each time the amount of money halves all the way down to $2,500. So Jennifer Lopez is going to be the first person, and it's called Thanks a Million. And so we'll do $1 million with 10 different celebrities on a pay-it-forward basis. So it should be really fun.
You're even doing like a music competition with Justin Bieber.
No, we're not doing anything with Justin Bieber that I know about.
Justin Bieber and Scooter Braun?
Oh, okay, yes, the Scooter Braun music competition, yes, for sure. But we're also, this audience would be interested, we're just finished a documentary called Benedict Men around St. Benedict's School, and Steph Curry is the producer, and it is a story about this extraordinary school, and they're turning these wonderful individuals into real men, and also, the winningest basketball team in New Jersey at a high school level.
So tell us about your sports programming.
Yeah.
LeBron.
Yeah.
I know you're doing something with LeBron.
We have not announced that yet. It's not finalized, but there is some interest on both parties there. So I should describe the content for you a little bit. So the first kind of content we have is what we call our lighthouses. These are actually movies. They're an hour, hour and a half, 2.5 hour movies, but they're told in 10-minute chapters. My best analogy for you is the Da Vinci Code. The Da Vinci Code, you might remember, is 464 pages and 105 chapters. Every chapter is just 5 pages long. Because Dan Brown said, people are not reading for 40 to 45 minutes anymore. And he said, if you've got 5 minutes, I want you to read 1 chapter. If you've got 10 minutes, I want you to read 2 chapters. So these are incredible movies, just told in a different format. Then we have something called Quick Bytes, which is where Thanks a Million and Jennifer Lopez comes in. These are not serialized. You don't have to watch them in order, but they're 5 to 8 minutes of really fun, interesting, high-impact content. And then we are doing something called Daily Essentials. So what we're doing is saying news, for example. Today in video news, you can go all over the internet and try to put together your own news, if you will. You could go to different news. And what we're going to do is 6 in the morning and 6 at night, 7 to 8 minutes, for a millennial audience, fast-paced, down the middle, just what you need to know. And we're also doing that for sports. And remember, we're not producing this, so we're going to work with news organizations and sports organizations to do this. But we're going to do every morning for 6.5 to 8 minutes what you need to know from sports the night before, highlights with a voiceover.
All right, I can think of a few people who can help with that. Now, none of this comes for free.
Right.
You're going to ask people to pay for this.
Yes, we are.
And we pay for a lot of things. We pay for Netflix. Disney's coming out with a streaming service. Apple's asking us to pay. Hulu. Why should we pay more for something like this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I should tell you it's $4.99 a month ad-supported, $7.99 a month ad-free. And so it's on the low end of these subscription services. But I think what will happen is customers will, there's so many options, you're right, and there's more options that are announced every day. I think most people will say, okay, I need 1 or 2 or so streaming services, long-form streaming services that you watch at home at night and on the weekend, and you're going to invest an hour and a half. I think people will subscribe to a music streaming service, whether that's Spotify or Apple Music. I think there may be a niche service that people are really interested in. I don't know, you're really interested in science fiction or something. And then I think people will pick an on-the-go, very high-quality streaming service that is designed for short content on the go as you move around. So, as people begin to give up their, traditional subscriptions to cable and other things, I think there will be, 2 to 3 subscriptions that people ultimately settle in on, and we hope will be one.
Now, you've said you're shooting for HBO level quality.
Yes.
You've also told me, and Jeffrey has told me in the past as well, you don't think about Disney and Netflix as the competition.
No, we
Why
really
not?
don't. Because of the use case. So remember I told you we're 7 a.m., 7 in the morning till 7 at night, on-the-go viewing. Most of the other big streaming services, Netflix, Disney, Apple TV, Hulu, are all really focused on that long form. Really, you got to invest a half an hour, an hour and a half. Most people, how many of you, during the day watch an hour-long program? Nobody, right? But you want to keep up on what's going on, and you might have 10 minutes here or 10 minutes there. Maybe when you were waiting for this to start, you might have watched a Quibi. And so our target audience, what they're doing in these in-between moments is they're playing casual games, they're doing social networking, they're doing collaboration, they're watching YouTube. And by the way, the amount of video that's being watched on mobile is through the roof. In 2012, it was 6 minutes a day watching video on your mobile. Today, it's 60 minutes, and on its way, I think, to 80 minutes. By the way, we think that will accelerate with 5G. So we just need a little piece of that. And every single consumer product you can think of, there's always a premium version. Think about whether it's, sneakers or water or clothes, there's always a premium version. And that's where we aim. In fact, speaking of sneakers, I know you're doing a panel later on sneakers. We're doing a sneaker documentary with Lena Waithe about the history of sneakers, the commerce of sneakers, the culture of sneakers. And in fact, that starts shooting, I think, next week.
So you've raised $1 billion.
Yes, we have.
Very few people can do that in such a short time. I guess Meg Whitman and Jeffrey Katzenberg can. And you're looking to raise more.
Yes.
$500 million more.
Yes.
How is this being spent, and can this really pay off?
Yeah. So the financial model here, the 2 major costs of Quibi are content. We are doing Hollywood level quality content, which is very different than user generated content. When you spend more, you get fantastic stories, incredible production value, stars, both in actors, actresses, directors, writers, producers. So that's the biggest cost. The second is to market the service. We have to tell people what Quibi is. No one's heard of Quibi. No one understands the use case. And so we have to do that by subscription acquisition, by brand marketing, by content marketing, by social marketing. All of our stars, because of the financial deal that we have, they all own their own IP. And so they have a financial incentive to actually promote us through their social media. So those are the 2 big costs. And we don't need the money actually right now, but we will need the money before we break even. So we decided maybe in the fall, let's raise $500 million. Markets are good right now. You don't know quite what will happen. And so we thought, we can do this now. We should do it now.
So who is the competition? Is it YouTube? Is it Snap? Is it Instagram? Yeah. Is it those things that we do in the in-between times when we're waiting for a flight?
I think it is partly that. I also think we're going to grow the market. Remember I told you the amount of video that people are watching on their mobile, the amount of time spent is we would call it, here in Silicon Valley, up and to the right. There's an accelerating trend there. So I think we will help grow the market along with 5G. But then we have to compete for people's time. And you said the things, social networking, maybe a little bit of YouTube, collaboration, just doing whatever people do on their phones. And we think we'll be able to carve out a bit of time on that every single day for this premium, incredible stories with incredible content and actors and actresses and great stories.
So you spent most of the last 2 decades as a Silicon Valley CEO.
Yes.
What's it been like? Living in Hollywood, working in the entertainment industry. Who's cooler?
What I will tell you is Silicon Valley and Hollywood are entirely different. I mean, I think I underestimated how different they are. I'll say it's Berlin and Paris are both in Europe, but they're really different cities. LA and San Francisco are both in California. They are really different. I'll tell you what I admire about Hollywood. It is they are such in the swim of popular culture and what's happening. They are at the cutting edge. It is also an amazingly philanthropic town. The amount of money that this community gives to educational institutions, healthcare institutions, they support their own with big donations to the Motion Picture Television Association, religious institutions. It's a very generous place. The other thing that's interesting is that it is a relationship-oriented town. And I think it's because most of the individuals in Hollywood, this is a gross generalization, but it tends to be a more right-brain, emotional personality that has been attracted to entertainment. And they care a lot about relationships. And I think in Silicon Valley we do too, but I think relatively speaking this is a slightly more transactional culture because most of us are left-brain engineers. I don't happen to be an engineer by training, but I might as well be. And so that's been a fascinating thing. So listen, I like both cultures. I've grown up here, so this feels more like home to me, but I like it. It's fun. And the weather's great.
We're going to start taking questions, so if you got something, tee it up. They also give a lot of money to political candidates.
Yes.
You ran for governor of California as a Republican. You're now in Hollywood, big, generally Democratic community.
Yeah.
Jeffrey is a big donor to Obama.
Yeah.
How are they perceiving the race and what is happening?
Well, I think there's probably, like everywhere, like here and there's keen interest in this next race. And it is much more a Democratic town, but so is Silicon Valley, honestly. I mean, so is California. So on a political spectrum, I find it to be quite similar. But there's a lot of interest, a lot of interest. And I think as the Democratic field starts to narrow over the next 4 to 6 months, I think you will see at Los Angeles coalesce around, probably whoever the nominee is.
I heard Biden is a favorite down there just because he's...
Yeah. Well, I think Biden is very well known to that community, right? I mean, he's, was vice president for 8 years under Obama. He was in the Senate for, 3 decades before that. So so everyone knows him. And so it's a little bit like the polls, name recognition and familiarity counts. But I think they're enthusiastic about Biden.
So how about you? I mean, you came out and publicly said, I'm not voting for Trump.
Yeah.
I voted for Hillary.
Yeah.
Will you not be voting for Trump again?
Yeah, so what you probably don't know is I used to be a Republican. I was a lifelong Republican, ran for governor of California. I was a Republican. I might have failed the IQ test there. That might not have been the smartest
Which is
thing.
why she's open to Q&A. There's not a question she hasn't answered.
But now I've registered as declined to state. So we'll see. I mean, I think probably in all likelihood I will vote for the Democratic candidate. But we'll see how this unfolds. And, being a moderate, I was a very moderate Republican, and so probably in the Democratic field, I'd probably like to see someone on the more moderate side of things, but we'll see what happens.
So anyone not Elizabeth Warren, who's calling for the breakup of big tech?
Yeah, I haven't said all of who and I don't actually know. I'm probably like most of you, trying to figure out what people stand for, what kind of candidate they're going to be, how they want to reach across the aisle, how they want to get things done. So it will reveal itself, I think.
All right, questions? Anyone? Come on. All right, we got one here.
Yeah. So the model typically is let's say that there would be someone, a production company or stars who want to do a show with us. They will come and talk to us about that. If we think it's the right thing for us, then we pay the cost of production plus 20% profit margin. We license that content in its short form on Quibi for 7 years. And at the end of 7 years, the IP is owned by whatever combination of stars or players and production studios that they determine themselves. So that's how it works.
That $1 billion, I mean, is the majority of that going to talent?
It's going to content. And for a production, talent is an important part of that production, but it's not the majority cost because, listen, all of you know, when you do a movie or anything, I mean, there's lots of other costs other than the talent. Talent's an important part of it. But, you put on these big Hollywood productions, there's many, many other costs.
All right. Anyone else? Right here.
Oh, thanks. Hi. Only because you're doing it at such a large scale do I ask, but are you facing any backlash from parents who are concerned that you're encouraging people to spend more time on their phones and in a very individual way?
So this is a platform for adults. Our target audience starts at 18 and we think is sort of 18 to 44, as I said. So we have no children's content on Quibi. And you might be surprised by that because, of course, Jeffrey, made his career making a lot of movies for children, not exclusively. But when you do a startup, one of the things I think is so important is focus. So we are all about this short-form Hollywood-style content on mobile only for adults. So we have not received backlash about, trying to accelerate a trend of, watching things on your phone. Listen, people are doing that. We hope to give them fantastic stories, news, information, things that they can use every day. And our mission of the company is to inform, entertain, and inspire.
Do you think kids could be an opportunity, though? Because obviously YouTube Kids has been heavily criticized, and it certainly feels like, as a parent, you're either committing to an hour-and-a-half-long movie or a half-hour show. They don't like getting interrupted.
Right.
There's no short-form content option.
Yeah. So maybe.
Plus, you're working with one of the best creators in history.
I know. But I think both of us felt that one of the secrets to startups, Jeffrey has done a startup, I've done a startup, one of the secrets to startups, and maybe business in general, is focus. Could we please do 4 or 5 things at 100% as opposed to try to solve world hunger? And every day there's a new idea for us. You should do live. You should do kids. You should do, all these different things. Interactive shows, choose your own ending. All of those may come with time, but we, I think, need to establish the brand, establish the use case, build the tech. So watching movies, watching on your mobile it's a good experience today. We think it can be fantastic. And listen, we only have 160 people, which is a lot for a startup, but relative to the ambition that we have, it's important for us to stay focused. And so my view is, let's execute the plan we have, let's get traction and success with the current strategy, and then, we'll do lots of other things, I'm certain, with the fullness of time.
To that point, the CEO of Netflix, Reed Hastings, has said their competition is sleep. And if any of these shows, you watch them, the credits are on for 2.5 seconds, and then it's the next show, and then you can't go to sleep. But it's not just kids; it's adults who have a problem with addiction. And is this going to be even more of us just staring at our phones and not talking to each other?
Yeah. Well, listen, Ariana Huffington has a whole business on sleep, and listen, I think everyone needs to be disciplined about how much time they are online, what they're doing. But our objective is, how do we create things that really do inspire, do inform, do entertain, and we have to rely on people to make judgments about how much screen time they want to spend and how they get sleep, for sure.
All right, question.
How does Hollywood look at you kind of disrupting their traditional business?
Yeah.
The question was, how does Hollywood look at you disrupting their traditional business?
Well, I think Hollywood at first was, what are you all exactly doing? Hollywood now, and all 7 major studios are investors in Quibi, and the reason they decided to invest is they think this is a growth opportunity for them. So if you think about the history of sort of filmed entertainment, there was movies for 100 years, which were designed in hour-and-a-half, 2-hour, 2.5-hour sessions to be watched all at once in a movie theater. Then there was television, to be watched in your home, in a television set, typically in a half an hour or an hour thing. Then there was, premium cable. Now they're streaming. But if you think movies, television, next thing, there's no question the mobile phone is the next screen. Everyone in Hollywood thinks if we can create new ways to tell stories that are engaging on the mobile phone, it may be as big an idea as movies and television were. And what we're trying to do by making watching video on your mobile extraordinary is give the creatives a chance to tell stories in a new way on what is certainly the screen of the future.
All right. Go ahead. We're getting a mic here.
Hello. I'm going to ask you an ethics question because you said that you're going to create news content.
Yeah.
So I want to understand, how are you going to do the moderation? Is it going to be similar to things that, like Facebook, since you're a platform, is going to be based on what people self-select as the things that they want to watch? Or is it going to be what you select, and then how are you going to curate that content to make sure it's equitable for all the communities that you'll serve?
It's a great question. So remember, I told you we are not a studio. We are a platform, so we commission this content. So we will be partnering with one of the major news organizations to do this 6 to 8 minutes, 6 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. And so we will work with that news organization to try to be right down the middle, apolitical. Here's what you need to know that happened in your world yesterday and what you should be looking for today and the day after. We want to, one of our really core values of our company is be the audience. And so we want to reflect this generation of Americans, which is, and we launch in just the US and Canada, which, as you know, is the most diverse generation in American history. So in front of the camera, behind the camera, the stories we tell on our employees, we are working to build an incredibly diverse company. And so we want to tell those stories around our news, morning, noon, and night, with an eye towards the audience that we are going after, but straight down the middle at a pace with a host that we hope can be this generation's Peter Jennings or Tom Brokaw or Dan Rather.
Okay.
So premium content obviously requires a high cost per minute. Thank you.
Yes.
A high cost per minute, right?
Isn't it like $100,000 a minute?
That's what I heard.
Or something? That's
Certainly for our lighthouses, the long-form movies that we tell in chapters can be up to $100,000 a minute or $5 million an hour.
Obviously. And then knowing the cost of acquiring paying subs, have you thought about less premium alternatives in the content portfolio?
No, it's not the strategy right now. We know that we have to set ourselves apart. Do you remember when HBO launched? Their tagline was, "It's not TV, it's HBO." And they were not denigrating advertiser-supported TV. It was at its height. Hill Street Blues, all these fantastic shows, Friends, ER. No one was complaining about television like that. And by the way, it's still going strong. So we're just going to try to stake out a premium position in this short-form arena. So if it's on a lot of the other channels, it can't be on Quibi.
Now, you're doing a lot of your own personal investing, or some personal investing, esports, for example. We've got a lot of folks in the audience who are investing, looking for where people are placing their next bets. What do you think is the next wave of
at Quibi, we are excited about gaming and esports. In fact, in our daily essentials, I had just talked about news and our sports show, but we also will have a gaming show. We'll have an extreme sports show, an action show. And but I had discovered gaming, probably, and esports probably 4 or 5 years ago, frankly, from my children. And so I looked into it. So we are investors in the Immortals in LA, which is, now has a broader name because it includes a number of different things. But so I'm an investor in the Immortals, and it's really quite remarkable. It's been great fun for us.
Anything else? What should be on our radar? What do you think is the next wave of new technology?
Yeah. Well, that's a very broad question. Listen, I still think technology is still very much a growth industry. If you think of my generation, the industry of my generation was technology. I think it will be the industry of this next generation as well. The innovation that goes on in Silicon Valley is unlike anything I've ever seen. And so I think one of the biggest changes is the last generation was largely consumer-oriented technology for the most part, B2C. You're now seeing a huge wave of B2B technology. There's always been that, Vivek is here and he, did Tibco. But honestly, I think you're starting to see even more now the consumerization of IT and the B2B space. So Listen, I don't do a lot of direct investing anymore. I'm a little bit busy, but I would honestly tell you that tech investing, tech is where the future is going to be. There's no question. Every company is a tech company. When I ran for governor, let's go back to that, shall we not? Let's not go back there. But anyway, I'll go back for a moment. I traveled all over California, and the Central Valley, is the breadbasket of America. And I honestly will tell you that the agriculture industry is a tech industry. You get into these huge combine harvesters, it's like going to a NOC, a network operations center. And by the way, they are all self-driving. And so they've been self-driving these fields, for many, many years. Now, there's no one to run into, so, right, it's safer. But honestly, every industry is a tech industry, and I think that's only getting more advanced.
So, last question, and I would be remiss if I did not ask you this.
Sure.
As somebody who ran HP, ran eBay, and is certainly paying attention to what is happening geopolitically. We are already in the middle of a trade war with China.
Yep.
It could potentially get worse in the next couple of days after
Yeah.
President Trump
Yeah.
meets President Xi. Are you worried? And if you're worried, how worried are you?
Yeah. So listen, I do not think a trade war between the United States and any country, but especially China, is in anyone's best interest. We are a globally connected economy. This isn't like 150 years ago where you could retreat into an isolationist stance. I think it's the wrong thing to do. So I worry about these tensions because think about many, many American industries. The supply chain is in China. And to bring it back to the United States is a 10-year process, if it could even be done. So I just think it's important to think about how we reduce the tensions and try not to get into an escalating trade war with any trading partner. I mean, I happen to be a free trader. I understand it has been dislocating to certain individuals, but frankly, the biggest dislocation has been technology, not trade. And so I just think, there's very high risks of getting into a trade war with lots of unintended consequences.
So are you nervous about the future of America? I know that sounds like such a big
listen,
question.
Because I ran for office, I now follow politics in a way that I might not have as a private citizen. And I see things that I now understand that I would not have understood as a private citizen. So I'm worried about the state of politics in America, and I'm a bit worried about where we're headed. But I will tell you, this country always figures it out. And I think we have an incredible country with incredible individuals, and we will figure this out. But it's a little bit tense right this very minute.
All right. On that note of mixed optimism, Meg Whitman, everybody. Thank you so much.